Welcome to the Real Estate Success Podcast. I'm your host today, Jim Ingersoll, and we've got another amazing show for you. Shout out to all of our loyal listeners. We really appreciate all you guys that share this content in Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and everywhere else. And those that have been leaving the reviews, we greatly appreciate it. You know, we started this podcast probably about a year and a half ago with the purpose of helping and encouraging real estate entrepreneurs find their path to success, whether it's investing, wholesaling, being a realtor, property management, being a landlord, rehabbing, flipping, all those things get covered. And today is no exception. We got a good friend of mine, Duke Dodson, on the line with us. Duke, how you doing?
Great, Jim. Thank you for having me, man. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So Duke's got a very large, successful property management business, and he's doing commercial development and a lot of stuff nowadays, right, Duke?
Sure. Yep.
So let me jump back to when you and I first met, which was when I was wholesaling a freaking ton of homes back then, like over 100 houses a year, which is insane.
Yep.
And I used to do these Saturday bus tours, and I met some awesome people on my bus tours, including yourself, Daniel Clayman, Ryan Sedgwick.
Yep.
And the list goes on. And a bunch of the people like 10, 12 years ago, including yourself, went on to have tremendous success. So congratulations on all you've put together.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that bus tour was amazing. Ryan Sedgwick and I said, let's just, we've been buddies for a while. And we said, let's just try it. And then we, met you, and we looked over, and there was this kid sitting beside us. We started talking to him, and that kid was Daniel Clayman. So it's pretty funny. Looking back now, that's how we met, was on a Petersburg bus tour 10 years ago. So
it's freaking insane when you think about it, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
You got to get out of there and get out of your comfort zone and onto a bus. And you might meet a kid named Daniel Clayman who went on to have an amazing software business.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
And so we don't have Daniel on with us. We should have done a three-way. But, remember back, after the bus tours, we would get together for like barbecue and stuff.
Yeah.
And Daniel would come, and he'd have like this spreadsheet, right, of how he's analyzing his deals. And he built that into Rehab Valuator, which is still mind-blowing to me.
Sure, it is, yeah.
So I've watched you for so many years. Like I know you bought a couple deals from me.
Yeah.
Duplexes and stuff.
Yeah. My first rental property I bought was from you, was a duplex, 2914 Haynes Avenue, which I still own, still a duplex. We may convert it to a single family at some point. That north side area is developing nicely, but
it has.
My first rental property was that was 05 or 06, somewhere in that range, the duplex.
And who would have guessed way back then that whole area would gentrify and really take off with revitalization? I mean, you're in good shape now, right?
Sure, yeah. I think we still haven't renovated it. We basically bought it and kept it as is, but now it's probably about time to bring it from like a B- product to an A product.
I agree.
So we'll probably do that.
Yeah, and for all of our listeners who don't know it, the north side of Richmond is it's the hottest area right now. I mean, it's crazy what's going on over there. I'm working over there quite a bit, and it's just like changing right before our eyes, almost like Churchill did a few years ago, I think. What do you think, dude?
Yeah, I think the north side, has had pockets for years of the Bellevues.
Bellevue is great.
It's been great. And then, I think the strategy for years on the north side was like to come buy on the fringe, to buy on the fringe and renovate. And you buy it at like the bad property prices, but you get good property tenants once you renovate. And I think that's been going on for years, and it's more and more of that's happening now. Sure.
Yeah, I had one rental for a good long time that was a little too much on the fringe, and when somebody got shot in my front yard, I said, "Time to sell."
Yeah, yeah.
It was on 2nd Avenue.
That's never good for business.
No, and it's funny because Daniel had the house directly across the street, and he said the same thing. He's like, "I know it's going to gentrify. I just don't want to wait any longer."
Yeah, second and 4th Avenue is probably the last part of the north side
and that's coming back now. 4th Avenue is even crazy. So going back a while, I remember when you first started rolling your property management business, and you guys would call me every once in a while when you had like a property manager who was really motivated to sell.
Right.
But you were just like getting started. And so talk us through like your launch and some of the struggles, because I mean, you're super successful now, but every entrepreneur struggles in getting rolling.
Yeah, so I first got into the game by buying rental properties. 2005, 2006, 7. I bought maybe 3 rental properties, and I was looking for a property manager to manage those properties. And I couldn't find one that put the energy and the emphasis into managing small, scattered portfolios the way that I thought needed to be done. And so I saw an opportunity there to start a management company to focus first on those, single-family duplexes, small, scattered properties. And so that's what I did. 2007, I started that company called Dodson Property Management. And on day one, all we did was single families. We would do a duplex here and there, but nothing bigger than that. And so we put a lot of energy into just improving every process involved in property management of those properties. So we looked at the leasing process, the renewal process, the inspection process, the move in, move out, reporting, all of that. And we built a business hyper-focused on those types of properties. And so that was our initial business model. And that's still, one of our bigger components of our business now is single-family management.
Yeah, personally, I love single-family homes. I'm looking for a good multifamily project that I could buy and add value to, but the cap rates are so compressed. It's really difficult right now. But I've always, in my heart, been a single-family guy. I love them. They're super easy to rent. They're in high demand, and so I love them, but they're not for everybody. I understand. So you got started. How did you get your first few clients other than yourself?
Yeah. So started my company, created the entity, got licensed, kind of hung my shingle, if you will, and then had a marketing budget of pretty much zero. So, back then I had no Google or SEO presence back then.
Yeah.
Like we do now. So I spent most of my time networking. So I attended any kind of networking group that may have real estate investors there and or realtors there. Starting the business in 2007, that was when the market was starting to crash. And so there's a lot of folks upside down properties. And so they would, the typical way it would happen is they would lose their job or had to move out of Richmond and they needed to rent their primary residence. Well, they'd go try to sell their primary residence, and the realtor would tell them you're upside down. So they would say, have you considered renting it? Because you had 2 choices: bring $40,000 to the closing table to sell your house, or rent it and maybe break even, or maybe lose $100 a month, something like that. There are a lot of people in that range, and so we marketed a lot to realtors. We built a lot of relationships with local realtors and said, hey, if you can't sell the house, refer it to us. We'll pay you a referral fee. We'll manage the property as long as that person wants to manage the property. When they're ready to sell, we'll call you and we'll get you back in the loop so you could sell the property for them. And that worked really well because back then there weren't as many property management companies, and the ones that were in existence weren't very good. And so a lot of realtors were just anxious to find a good, solid, property management partner. And so that's what we became.
All right, so that's amazing. And here's another thing. You and I both started when the market was really good, and we both survived the freaking crash because it took out a lot of good people. I mean, a lot of great people lost everything. So I give you credit for hanging in there. So your initial marketing then was done your initial growth was done by networking. And I think it's interesting you went after people that can't sell, that needed the rent. So they were like accidental landlords, but they didn't know how to do it.
Exactly. And the market was flooded with those people then, because we picked up a lot of them. And then 3, 4, 5 years later, we saw the fundamentals changing and the market was starting to improve and values were starting to rise. And we knew that this reluctant landlord market wouldn't last forever. Some of those folks will decide to keep those as rentals, but a lot of those folks were just waiting to not be upside down anymore and they were going to sell. So around 5 years in, we made a big push to build our business where we could wouldn't be completely reliant on the reluctant landlord. We had to be built for the investor client, the long-term hold client. And those folks are different. The person that has one house is way different than the guy that owns 10 or 20 houses. And so we had to build our model to be able to service those people. And so that involved volume-based pricing because the guy that owns 20 houses can't pay the same dollars per door than the guy that owns one. The model doesn't make any sense. So we had to start networking in the investor circles more, had to build our systems and processes from a reporting standpoint so we could service those clients that had 10 or 20 or more houses.
So let's talk a little bit about the processes you had to build. I understand the marketing side, and I like the way that you guys sort of shifted that. That was really well explained. Mm-hmm. But what did you need system-wise to keep up with your really strong growth. I mean, you started just like growing super fast in your systems, your team, your processes. And I mean, being a landlord's tough business.
Sure.
My listeners know that. It is tough. You got to attract the right tenant. You got to screen, you got to manage the house. You got to manage the tenant. God forbid things do sometimes go wrong. You got to manage through the difficult times.
Right.
What type of systems, processes, and team did you start to build as you started to build your business?
And so back around then, a friend of mine recommended the book, The E-Myth. The E-Myth,
yeah, good one.
Documenting processes. And so we basically looked at what is property management? What are the major core processes? And let's build checklists and let's build systems for each of those processes, and let's refine those processes over time. So we had a new property checklist, which basically dealt with the intake of the new property, from getting the keys and the photos and the specs of the property into our property management software. And that new property checklist morphed into a leasing checklist. So then we had leasing procedures. Once the property is in place, your main procedures are dealing with maintenance issues. So there's a process for how those are dealt with. There are inspections that need to be done on a recurring basis. And so that's a process. And then you had your renewal checklist. So, for example, for us, that means we call our client and say, do you want to rent your house one more year? Right. And if they say yes, then we call the tenant and say, do you want to rent for one more year? And if they say yes, great, we handle the renewal letter. If they say no, then that renewal checklist turns into a move-out checklist. So you start the move-out process. You plan, you need to do a pre-move-out inspection to see what kind of condition their house is in. So you're ready to turn it as quickly as you can. And then once they move out, you do the move-out inspection, reconcile the deposit, turn the unit, get it back on the market. At that point, you're reassessing market rent. You're doing all these things to get ready for another year of management. So those are the core processes. We were lucky in the sense that around that time, between 2007 and 2012, a lot of great technology started coming to the property management space that wasn't there before. You had the technology on the multifamily and the commercial side. You had the Yardies of the world. But what didn't exist then were the Appfolios, the Buildiums, PropertyWare, those folks, Rent Manager. A lot of small to mid-sized landlords use those softwares now to manage the whole process. So those technology, those software vendors that we use automate a lot of the processes that used to be a manual process. And so it allowed people like me to manage a lot more doors per employee than you could have in, say, 2005. So there are a lot of people like us to be more efficient and more profitable.
Yeah. And, for Cheryl and I, my wife. So when we switched and we went from a file cabinet to Buildium, that was like a gigantic shift in productivity for us.
Sure.
Because everything went online. The tenants can pay online. We manage leases online. Just you receive applications online. Everything is so much easier. Back then, like in 2005, 2007, and 2008, like how many rentals were you managing? And like 10 years later, what did you guys grow to?
So when I bought my first rental in 2005, by 2007, I started the company in 2007. I owned 3 rental properties. That's it. And when I started the company, from year one, we basically went from those 3 to about 100 doors under management. Only 3 of those were mine, and the other 97 were other people's. We grew about 100 units per year for those first 3 years. Then we hired a business development person that helped us accelerate our growth around 2010. And we acquired a few companies along the way, and then we expanded into multifamily and commercial. So today we manage about 1,500 single-family homes, about 2,000 apartment units, and 1 million square feet of commercial space.
I mean, does that still like blow your mind when you start rattling those numbers off?
It only does when you talk about it in this context, where you talk about where we were and where we are now. Because I've been in the muck for 10 years, it doesn't seem like we grew that fast. It seems painstaking and manual. But I guess it's nice every now and then to look back and kind of remember where you came from. Because we set big goals back then, and we consistently hit those goals. And so it's nice to go back and kind of look at it. It seems easy, just me telling you, but I promise you it wasn't easy.
I know it wasn't. And I think it's kind of funny when I'm thinking about this now, like the first one you bought was the duplex, which was all started on our bus tour.
Sure.
Which is amazing.
It is amazing, yeah.
It blows my mind, to be honest with you. So that's a lot of units to manage. How did you go about like finding the people and providing leadership to your team, because when you get to that level, all of a sudden, you've got to change so your organization can change.
Sure. Yeah. So early on, we didn't articulate what our company culture was and the kind of person we were looking for. Early on as a small business, our culture just evolved just kind of naturally and organically. As a small company, usually the culture takes on the identity of the founder and the first couple of employees, and it kind of grows from there. But a few years in, we kind of realized we needed to be more strategic about identifying what our culture is and the kind of people that we're looking for and how to find them and how to attract them and how to brand our company so that it naturally attracts those people.
Yeah.
We defined our mission, our vision, our values, and what makes us us. And then we built our hiring processes and our employment branding to attract those people. So before you ever sit down for an interview, you've already seen our website. You've been inundated with marketing materials from us about what our culture is, and hopefully you've heard in the marketplace from friends and people maybe people that work here now, who we are and what we're about. And so that naturally attracts the right people and weeds out the wrong people. But then if some wrong people slip through the cracks and get to the interview process, we ask behavioral questions that will identify if they fit our culture or not. And now it's not a perfect system. We don't get every hire right, but we get more hires right percentage-wise today than we did, say, 5 years ago. Sure. And then once they're here, we continuously continue to inundate them with what our culture is and what we expect, and we review them quarterly. And we try to get better and better at weeding out the people that don't fit our system faster. So we have a higher percentage of people, right seat, which is where we're always striving for.
Yeah, just like if you read the book Traction.
Yeah, we subscribe to that model, Traction.
I do too. Yeah, it's great. The EOS. I think it's awesome. I could tell by some of the stuff you're talking about, it was tying right in.
Yeah, we've been doing that model for 3 years now. We're big fans of Traction.
So our core values in my business are gratitude, growth, and development. How do yours work out?
Our 4 core values are driven, honorable, empathetic, and courageous.
Wow. And
then our vision is to positively impact over 500,000 lives by 2025. By 2025, by attracting innovative, trustworthy folks that fit our values. So that's kind of what we're looking for. So we look, in our business, we interact with so many people. We have the opportunity to affect people's lives in a good way or a bad way. We deal with housing, which is a major need. And so we make someone's day a lot better or a lot worse by doing our job correctly or incorrectly. So we try to get folks that really understand that responsibility and relish that opportunity to make someone's day better by being really good property managers.
So I saw recently where you came out with that you want to impact 500,000 people. I saw that through Jim Washock, who I go to church with and is a friend of mine. He's helping you guys on social media, right?
Yep.
So talk a little bit about that. That's like a huge 10x goal, man. That is incredible.
Yeah, no, it's cool. So it came about, we actually hired consultants to help us with our mission, vision, values about 3 years ago. Yeah. And the questions that consultant asked us, he said, if you do your job correctly, what impact do you have on your clients, tenants, vendors, employees? What's the best part about your job, and what are the best experiences, and what's a good day like? And so as we were talking, we kind of realized that what we like most about, property management is not easy, and there's some bad days, don't get me wrong, but the best parts about property management is that you do have the ability to impact someone's life. You have the ability to help somebody on the tenant viewpoint. You can find homes, which is pretty awesome. And once they're there, you can make them very happy and comfortable and proud of the home or the apartment that they live in. So that's pretty cool. And on the client side of things, when we're managing a client's asset, that's usually their biggest asset, and the asset that determines their financial well-being probably more than anything else. And so it's a lot of responsibility. So when we do a good job, it's evident that people are really happy with us, and we don't do a good job, it's evident that we've ruined somebody's day. And so we kind of seize that opportunity to positively impact people's lives. And it starts with doing your job well with happy clients, happy tenants, but it's evolved into this kind of community-based effort to reach, beyond clients and tenants. But when we interact with vendors or fellow employees or just the general public, we do a lot of volunteer stuff. We we work really hard to, develop neighborhoods, make neighborhoods better. But we also, in some of the more parts of the city, we do a lot of work in like North Churchill at Woodville Elementary, and our employees have seemed to really kind of jump on that and get really excited about that. So that's where that came from.
Fantastic. And for all of our listeners who want to get involved with you folks, the best way is to go to dotsonpropertymanagement.com.
Sure. And then I encourage you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're starting to do a lot more stuff there. A lot of videos, a lot of podcasts as well. So
I noticed that.
Find out about us. Yeah.
Looks good.
Yeah.
That's good. So dotsonpropertymanagement.com. And, you mentioned social media. I've got personally a love-hate relationship with it because it's like a huge thing for network and impacting people like you're talking about, but it's a gigantic distraction also. But on the positive side, if you want to reach 500,000 people, that is one way you can get that done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a good way to promote like your brand and your culture and what you are. And I've just noticed since we've started our most recent social media campaigns, how many more people have liked the page and more people come and interacted with our company. And I think it helps, in property management, you get some really angry people sometimes. If you're not working and it's cold, you're angry. If you own a property and it's not rented, it's sitting vacant, you're angry. And it helps to humanize us a bit with the marketplace. So if you go to Facebook to complain about us, for example, if you're mad about something, but you're hit with all this positivity and videos, and you're seeing like the humans that work here, the humans are working hard every day to try to make those tenants happy. You're probably less likely to get as angry, and you realize on the other side of the coin, like, look, these people at Dodson, they're humans just like the tenant and just like the clients. And maybe your world's not perfect now, but we're working hard to get there. So I think the social media gives you the ability to just promote who you are a little bit to the marketplace.
I've been using this because life isn't perfect. It gets a little messy sometimes. And I read how Steve Jobs handled it recently.
Right.
When one of the, I think it was iPhone 4 wasn't working or something. And they were just going to like crucify him. And he's up on stage and he's like, Apple's not perfect. iPhones aren't perfect, but we do want our users to be happy. And that's all he said. And there's like, you can't argue with that.
Sure.
And that's the bottom line, like no organization is perfect. Housing is not perfect. Things happen, but we do want you guys to be happy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It just kind of takes the hostility away.
Yeah. We definitely all have the same goal for sure.
Yeah. So I like that from Steve Jobs. I've been using it.
Cool.
Awesome. And I want to thank you guys too for sponsoring our boot camp. That's next week and sold out, and it's going to be rocking and rolling. And I'm looking forward to seeing Gabe over there and hanging out with you guys again. Yeah,
we're excited.
All right. So dotsonpropertymanagement.com. Duke, do you have any final success tips for our listeners today? Maybe getting over fear or something, because your growth is like this, it's been phenomenal.
Well, I guess my success tips would be, figure out what you want and set a goal. And then a goal may seem very out of reach. If you take a big goal and break it down into small steps, it becomes much more manageable, and there's nothing you really can't accomplish if you're willing to put in the time and the work, and you put your work in the right place. And so that to me is education, continuous improvement of yourself will usually lead to reaching those goals. So read, educate yourself would be my advice to anybody.
So I love to read as well. Have you read any books recently you want to share?
I read in the last year, I read a bunch of good books. I thought Shoe Dog about Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, was pretty awesome. If you're into entrepreneurial stories, it's an incredible journey he went on. From a real estate standpoint, I read the book about Sam Zell called "Am I Being Too Subtle?" I think is what it's called, something like that. But that's another story of a real estate guy starting from nothing and building up a massive empire, and he goes step by step of how he did it. So I'm always into biographies of business folks that really explains how they got from point A to point B. So those are two I would recommend for everybody.
Awesome. That's the whole reason I wanted to have you on today. Because now you're becoming one of those guys, man.
I still got a ways to go, man. So let's not count our chickens yet.
I'm super happy for you, Duke, and everyone can go to dotsonpropertymanagement.com. And Duke, I want to respect your time, and I know we got to both go grab some lunch, but
Sure.
Thanks again, and maybe we'll hook up for barbecue again. What do you think?
Yeah, man, we'd love to, man. Thanks for having me. Yeah,
we'll bring Ryan Sedgwick and Daniel Clayman with us.
Yeah, let's do it at Daniel's house. He's got a big new house. We should go check that out.
All right, man. Thanks again. Have a great one, Duke. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, take care. See you, man.